The alarm blared 3 times before. James Clark even registered it. He had been staring at the same spot on the asteroid surface for the past 10 minutes, his mind somewhere else entirely. He shook his head and checked the monitor. Seismic activity in Sector 7. Probably nothing. It was never anything. Out here in the belt, just rocks bumping into rocks in the endless dark. That was why he had taken this job in the first place, 3 months away from Earth, surrounded by nothing but silence and stone. The mining company paid well, but James would have done it for free. Out here, nobody asked him questions. Nobody looked at him with that expression he had grown to hate, the one that mixed pity with discomfort. The one that said they did not know what to say to a man who had buried his only child. James grabbed his helmet and headed for the airlock. Protocol demanded he investigate any anomaly in person. He was the only technician on the station, a small outpost responsible for monitoring drone operations across a dozen asteroids. Lonely work, perfect work. The walk to Sector 7 took 20 minutes. James moved through the low gravity with the practiced ease of someone who had spent years learning to trust his magnetic boots more than his own instincts. The stars above were impossibly bright, scattered across the black like someone had shattered a mirror made of light. His late daughter Brina would have loved this view. She used to press her face against the window during shuttle rides, her small hands signing excitedly about every star she could see, asking if people lived on any of them. James' music pushed the memory down. He was getting good at that. The anomaly was not seismic activity. James realized this the moment he crested the ridge and saw the ship. It was wedged into a crater like a broken tooth, smoke still rising from its ruptured hull. Not human design, not anything he had ever seen in any database or briefing. The metal was organic somehow, curved and flowing like it had been grown rather than built, and it shimmered with colors that seemed to shift when he was not looking directly at them. James should have called it in. That was protocol. Unknown vessel. Possible alien contact. Alert the authorities and wait for instructions. But something pulled him forward, some instinct that had nothing to do with training or procedure. The ship was dying. He could feel it. Somehow, feel the desperation bleeding out of it like heat from a wound. He found the boy near the back of the wreckage. At first, James thought he was looking at a corpse. The figure was slumped against a twisted beam, limbs bent at uncomfortable angles, skin the color of pale green moonlight. But then the eyes opened, and James found himself frozen in place. Those eyes were huge, golden like honey, held up to the sun, and they were filled with more fear than James had ever seen in any living creature. The boy could not have been older than 15 or 16 by human standards. His features were almost human, but not quite. The proportions slightly off, the cheekbones too sharp, the ears tapering to delicate points. His hair was white as fresh snow, cropped short and messy, and his skin had a faint luminescence too. It, like something bioluminescent, lived just beneath the surface. He was injured. A deep gash ran across his shoulder, leaking something that glowed faintly blue. James raised his hand slowly, the universal gesture of peace. The boy flinched backward, pressing himself against the wreckage, his mouth opening and closing in silent panic. No sound came out. His hands moved frantically, desperately forming shapes that James did not recognize but understood immediately. He was trying to communicate. He was trying to say something, and no sound would come. James felt something crack open inside his chest. He knelt down slowly, keeping his movements deliberate and calm. The boy watched him with those enormous golden eyes, trembling but no longer trying to flee. James pointed to himself, then slowly finger spelled his name in American Sign Language. James. The boy stared at his hands with an intensity that bordered on painful. James did it again. Then he pointed at the boy and raised his eyebrows in question. The boy's hands shook as he tried to copy the movements. He did not know sign language, of course he did not, but he understood what James was trying to do. He understood that James was trying to talk to him. James thought for a moment, then he traced letters in the dust at their feet. He wrote James with his finger and pointed to himself. Then he wiped the surface clean and gestured for the boy to try. The boy hesitated. Then with painful slowness he traced 4 letters in the dust. Liam. James smiled for the first time in 4 years. Getting Liam out of the wreckage took time. The boy's leg was trapped under a beam, and every movement made him wince. In silent pain, James worked carefully, using his cutting tools to slice through alien metal that resisted his equipment in ways that made no logical sense. The whole time he kept glancing at Liam, kept making small gestures to let him know he was still there, still trying. Liam watched him with something that looked almost like wonder. James had just freed the last piece of debris when his radio crackled to life. Except it was not his radio. The sound came from everywhere at once. A voice that was not quite a voice, something that pressed against the inside of his skull like a cold hand. Return the defective one. He belongs to us. James spun around. A second ship had appeared above the crater, this one sleek and angular and unmistakably military. Soldiers were descending on cables of light, their armor black as void, their weapons already raised, and leading them was a figure that made James's blood turn to ice. The commander was enormous, easily 7 ft, tall, with skin the color of gray-green stone and eyes that burned like dying embers. His face was scarred, brutal, expressionless. When he spoke, James heard him twice, once in the air and once inside his mind. Step away from the boy, human. This does not concern you. James looked at Liam. The teenager was pressed against the rocks behind him, his whole body shaking, his golden eyes fixed on the commander with naked terror. His hands were moving frantically, signing something over and over. James did not know the signs, but he understood the meaning perfectly. Please, please do not let them take me. Please. James thought about Brina. He thought about the last time he had seen her, lying in that hospital bed, her small hands too weak to sign anymore, her green eyes asking him a question he could not answer. Why could you not save me, Daddy? Why could you not fix this? He had failed her. He had watched her slip away, and there had been nothing he could do. No amount of love or desperation or prayer that could keep her heart beating. He had buried his daughter, and then he had buried himself out here in the dark, where nobody would ever need him again. But someone needed him now. James stepped in front of Liam, placing his body between the boy and the soldiers. His voice was steady when he spoke, steadier than it had any right to be. He's not going anywhere with you. The commander's expression did not change. You do not understand what he is, what he represents. He is flawed, broken, an aberration that threatens everything we have built. He's a kid, James said. He's scared and he's hurt, and you want to kill him because he's different. I understand that just fine. The commander raised one massive hand. The soldiers behind him lifted their weapons. This is your only warning, human. Step aside or die with him. James did not move. The first shot hit him in the shoulder. It was not like any bullet he had ever felt, more like being struck by lightning condensed into a single point. His whole arm went numb, but he stayed on his feet. The second shot took him in the side, just above his hip. The third grazed his thigh. He staggered but did not fall. Liam was screaming behind him. James could not hear it, but he could see it in the way the boy's mouth was open, in the way his whole face contorted with horror. Liam grabbed at James's arm, trying to pull him back, trying to make him run, but James shook him off. Get to my vehicle, James said through gritted teeth. He pointed toward the ridge where he had left his mining transport. Go now. Liam shook his head frantically. His hands formed the same sign over and over. James did not need to understand the language to know what it meant. No. I will not leave you. James grabbed the boy by the shoulders and looked directly into those golden eyes. He could feel blood soaking through his suit, could feel his body starting to fail, but none of that mattered. All that mattered was making this kid understand. I am not asking, James said. I'll be right behind you. It was a lie. They both knew it was a lie. But sometimes lies were necessary. Sometimes they were the kindest thing you could give someone. Liam's eyes filled with luminescent tears. He pressed his forehead against James's for one brief moment. A gesture that felt like goodbye and thank you and I am sorry all at once. Then he turned and ran. James faced the soldiers. There were 8 of them plus the commander. He had no weapons, no armor, nothing but a cutting torch and a lifetime of grief that had been waiting for a reason to become something else. The commander almost looked impressed. You would die for a creature you just met? Yeah, James said. He ignited the cutting torch. I would. The next few minutes were a blur of pain and desperation. James was not a fighter, not really. He was a technician, a father, a man who had spent most of his life fixing things rather than breaking them. But he had one advantage: the soldiers did not expect. He did not care if he died. That kind of recklessness was hard to fight against. James moved without hesitation, using the terrain and the low gravity and his knowledge of the asteroid's layout. He took 2 more shots to the back, one to the arm, another to the leg. 8 wounds total. His body was shutting down, systems failing one by one. But he kept moving, kept fighting, kept leading the soldiers away from Liam. He made it to the mining depot somehow. His vision was graying at the edges, but he could see the fuel storage tanks, could see the emergency detonator on the wall. James had performed safety drills for this exact scenario dozens of times. Rupture in the fuel line, potential explosion, evacuation protocols. He had Never once considered using it as a weapon. James slammed his hand against the detonator and felt the asteroid shake beneath his feet. The explosion was silent in the vacuum, but he saw the flash of light, saw the soldiers scatter, saw the commander's ship rock backward from the shockwave. Then he was falling, tumbling through debris and fire and darkness. And the last thing he saw was a small transport vehicle disappearing over the horizon with a flash of pale green visible through its window. Good, James thought. Good. Then everything went black. He did not expect to wake up. That was the first thought. When consciousness returned, he was supposed to be dead. 8 gunshot wounds, explosive decompression. No medical facilities within 3 months of travel. The math did not work out to him. Opening his eyes, but he opened them anyway. The room was unlike anything he had ever seen. The walls seemed to be made of light itself, soft and flowing, shifting between shades of blue and silver and colors he did not have names for. The bed beneath him was warm and yielding, conforming to his body in a way that felt almost alive. And his wounds were gone. Not bandaged, not stitched, simply gone. His skin was smooth and unbroken. You are awake. James turned his head toward the voice. A woman stood beside a window that looked out onto a field of stars. She was tall. And GT, music. And GT, easily 6 FT, with skin the color of deep forest at twilight, a rich green that seemed to hold shadows within it. Her hair fell to her waist in waves of pure silver light, literally glowing with a soft luminescence. Her eyes were violet, shot through with flecks of gold, and they watched him with an intensity that made his breath catch. She was beautiful. Not in any human way, but beautiful nonetheless. Beautiful the way a storm was beautiful, or a sunrise. Where am I? James asked. His voice came out rough, unused. You are aboard my vessel, the woman said, the medical bay specifically. You were dying when we found you. Your wounds were severe. Our physicians worked for many hours to repair the damage. Liam, James said immediately. The boy, is he safe? Something shifted in the woman's expression. The mask of composure cracked just slightly, revealing something raw beneath. My son is safe. And GT, music. And GT, she said quietly. Because of you. James blinked. Your son. I am Lily, the woman said. Queen of the Valorian people, and Liam is my child, my only child, the heir to a civilization that spans 100 worlds. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was heavy. He is also the first of our kind to be born without the ability to hear or to connect through thought. In all our recorded history across thousands of years and billions of lives, there has never been another like him. James sat up slowly, his mind struggling to process what he was hearing. The soldiers. The commander, they called him. Defective, Norman, Lily said. And the name was sharp on her tongue, like broken glass. He leads a faction that believes Liam's condition is a sign of weakness. Corruption in the royal bloodline. They want him dead. They have wanted him dead since the day he was born. That's insane, James said. It is. Politics, Lily replied, which James supposed amounted to the same thing. Among my people, telepathy is as natural as breathing. We speak with our voices. Yes, but we also share our thoughts, our Feelings our very selves. A Valorian who cannot hear our words and cannot feel our presence in their mind is isolated in a manner your kind cannot. Imagine. They are alone in a way that has no equivalent in your experience. James thought about Brianna, he thought. About the way she used to look at other children on the playground, watching their mouths move in conversations she could not hear, her small face brave but lonely. I can imagine, he said quietly. Lily studied him for a long moment. You used your hands to speak with him. I watched the recording from his rescue. Beacon. You made shapes with your fingers and he understood you. Sign language, it's how deaf people communicate where I come from. My daughter was deaf, I learned it for her. And GT was. James closed his eyes. She died 4 years ago. A disease took her. I raised her alone after her mother left, and when she died I lost everything that mattered. The silence that followed was heavy with understanding, with the shared weight of loving someone who lived in silence. I am sorry, Lily said finally, for your loss. I'm sorry for what you're going through. James replied, no parent should have to protect their child from their own people. Lily turned back to the window. The stars reflected in her violet eyes, tiny points of light scattered across infinite darkness. Liam has asked about you every hour since we brought you aboard, she said. He sits outside this room and waits. He does not sleep, does not eat, he just waits. James felt something twist inside. Can I see him? Lily nodded. She walked to the door and it slid open with a soft hiss of displaced air. On the other side, sitting cross-legged on the floor with his back against the wall, was Liam. The boy's head snapped up, his golden eyes went wide, and he rushed forward. He stopped just short of James's bed, hands hovering in the air like he was afraid to touch, afraid to believe. Music. James raised his own hands, slowly. Deliberately, he fingerspelled a single word. HELLO. Liam made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been a sob. He threw himself forward, wrapping his arms around James with a force that drove the air from his lungs, his whole body shaking with silent tears. James held him. He held this strange green boy from another world. And GT, music. And GT, this teenager who had never known what it felt like to be understood. And he let him cry. I've got you, James murmured, even though Liam could not hear him. I've got you. Over Liam's shoulder, James saw Lily watching them. Her expression was complex, layered, impossible to read, but her eyes were bright with something that looked almost like tears, and her hands were clasped together so tightly her knuckles had gone pale. The days that followed were strange and wonderful and terrifying all at once. James learned about the Valorians, about their vast empire stretching across the galaxy. And GT, music. And GT, about their technology that seemed indistinguishable from magic. He learned about their telepathy, the way they shared thoughts as easily as humans shared words, the deep intimacy of minds touching minds that formed the foundation of their entire society. And he learned about Liam. The boy was brilliant, James discovered this quickly, watching the way Liam absorbed information, the way his golden eyes tracked every movement with intense focus. He had taught himself to read lips in 3 languages he had learned to interpret body language with preternatural precision. He had survived by becoming an expert at observation, but he had never had anyone to talk to. Not really. James changed that. They developed their own language, a hybrid of Earth Sign Language and Valorian gestures and pure invention. James would teach Liam a sign and Liam would modify it, would suggest improvements, would create variations that worked better for his four-fingered hands. Within a week they could hold simple conversations. Within 2 weeks they were joking with each other, teasing, arguing about stupid things the way any adult and teenager might. And GT, music. And GT, Liam's personality bloomed like a flower, finally getting sunlight. He was sarcastic, James discovered, quick-witted and sharp-tongued in a way that his silence had always hidden. He had opinions about everything, strong ones, and he was not afraid to express them. Now that he had the means, he also had a mischievous streak a mile wide, delighting in pranks and anything that made James roll his eyes. He reminded James so much of Brianna that sometimes it hurt to breathe. But it was a good hurt, a healing hurt. Lily watched all of this from a careful distance. She was busy. James understood that running a civilization was not a part-time job, especially one threatened by civil war, but he noticed the way she lingered at doorways, the way her eyes followed the movements of their hands during conversations she could not understand. One evening, James found her alone on an observation deck staring out at a nebula that painted the darkness in shades of purple and rose. "Can I join you?" he asked. Lily nodded without turning. James walked to stand beside her, leaving a respectful distance between them. "I watched you teach him a new word today," Lily said after a while. "Something about food." He laughed so hard I thought he would fall over. "I taught him the sign for pizza," James said. "Then I had to explain what pizza was. Then I had to promise to make him some if we ever visit Earth." Lily smiled. It was a small expression, barely a curve of her lips, but it transformed her face. "He never laughed before you came," she said quietly. "I would see him smile sometimes, small smiles that never reached his eyes. But laugh, never. He just needed someone to listen." James said, "Someone who could understand him." "I tried." Lily's voice cracked on the words. "For 16 years I tried. I hired tutors, researchers, anyone who might find a way to reach him. I spent hours sitting with him, holding him, trying to project my love through our bond, even though I knew he could not feel it. But nothing worked. He would look at me with those eyes, those beautiful eyes, and I could see him wanting so desperately to connect, and I could not give him that. I failed him." "You didn't fail him," James said firmly. "You loved him. You protected him. You sent him away to save his life when keeping him close would have been easier. That's not failure. That's the hardest kind of love there is." Lily turned to look at him. Her violet eyes were luminous with unshed tears, and James realized with a start that he had never seen her cry before. Queens probably were not supposed to cry. "Will you teach me," she asked, "the signs you use with him? Will you teach them to me?" James smiled. "I'd be honored." They started the next day. James would sit with Lily for an hour each morning before her duties called her away. and GT, music, and GT, and they would practice together. She was a quick learner, her four-fingered hands adapting to the signs with surprising grace. James watched their first real conversation with a lump in his throat. Lily's signs were clumsy still, halting, and imprecise, but she managed to tell Liam that she loved him, 3 simple words signed. With trembling hands, Liam stared at his mother like he was seeing her for the first time. Then he signed back just as clumsily. I love you too. Lily broke. The composed queen, the regal ruler of 100 worlds, fell to her knees and wrapped her arms around her son and sobbed. Liam held her, his own tears falling freely. And they stayed like that for a long time, 2 people finally touching across a gap that had seemed infinite. James slipped away to give them privacy. He found a quiet corner of the ship and sat down heavily, his own eyes stinging. Brina, he whispered to the stars, I hope you can see this somehow. I hope you know that what we had, what you taught me, it mattered. It's still mattering. The war came to them eventually. James had known it would. Norman's forces attacked without warning, dropping out of hyperspace in a swarm of black ships that blotted out the stars. Alarms screamed through the vessel, lights flashing red, soldiers rushing to battle stations. James found himself swept up in the chaos, unsure where to go or what to do. Liam found him first. The boy grabbed James's hand and pulled him through corridors, finally stopping in a small chamber deep in the ship's core. Escape pods, Liam signed. Mother wants you safe. She says you must leave. Go back to Earth. No. James did not even hesitate. I'm not leaving you. You have to. Norman wants me dead. If you stay with me, you die too. James knelt down so they were eye to eye. Liam, listen to me. 4 years ago, I lost my daughter. And GT, music. And GT. And when she died, I thought my life was over. I thought there was nothing left worth living for. I came out here to the edge of nothing because I wanted to disappear. Liam was crying now, silent tears streaking down his green cheeks. But then I found you, James continued. And you gave me something I thought I'd lost forever. You gave me a reason to keep going. You gave me someone to protect again. He placed his hand over his heart. I am not leaving you, not now, not ever. We fight together, we survive together. Understand? Liam threw his arms around James's neck and held on tight. They fought their way to the command deck. The command deck was chaos. Lily stood at the center of it all, issuing orders both verbally and telepathically, her silver hair whipping around her. Her ships were outnumbered 3-1, and Norman's forces were closing in. Vast. Norman's face appeared on the view screen, massive and terrible. His gray-green skin was stretched tight over his skull, his red eyes burning with fanatical light. Surrender the aberration, he said, and I will spare the rest of you. Never, Lily replied. Then you will all die together. Liam caught James's eye and started signing rapidly. I have an idea. Norman's ship, I know its layout. I memorized the schematics when I was young. His soldiers communicate telepathically. In battle, they will not hear me coming. They will not sense me at all. I am invisible. To them, James felt his blood run cold. Absolutely not. It is the only way. You could die. I could die here too. Liam's eyes were fierce now. My whole life I have been treated as broken, defective, something to be hidden away and protected. But what if my difference is not a weakness? What if it is a weapon? James wanted to argue, but he looked at Liam, really looked at him. And he saw something he had not seen before. He saw a young man ready to fight for his own life, ready to prove that he was more than his limitations. I'm coming with you, James said. The journey to Norman's ship was the longest hour of James's life. They took a tiny maintenance shuttle, barely big enough for the two of them, and drifted through the chaos of battle. James focused on the mental exercises Liam had taught him, emptying his mind. Shield generator was exactly where Liam had said it would be. James watched in amazement as the teenager worked, his four-fingered hands flying over alien controls with confidence. The shields went down with a sound like thunder. Across the void, Lily's ships opened fire. Norman found them before they could escape. He came alone. His massive form filled the doorway, blocking their only exit, his red eyes burning with rage. The defective one, he snarled. I should have known you would find a way to be useful eventually. James stepped forward, putting himself between Norman and Liam. Norman laughed. You have no idea what you're protecting, human. He is a mistake, a cosmic error. He's brilliant and brave, James said. And you're terrified of him. That's it, isn't it? You're afraid of what he represents, an overlordian who can't be controlled through telepathy, who can't be monitored, can't be predicted. He's the one thing your society has no defense against. Silence, Norman growled. He's the future, James said, and you know it. Norman roared and charged. James braced himself for impact, but Liam did not run. Instead, he stepped forward directly into Norman's path. Liam raised his hands and pressed them against Norman's temples. The commander's eyes went wide with shock. He stumbled, staggered, fell to his knees, and then he collapsed completely, unconscious on the floor. Liam turned to James, his golden eyes wide with wonder. He signed quickly, his hands shaking. I could not hear him, but I could feel him. His thoughts, his emotions, they were like fire. And I pushed back, I made them stop. James stared at the boy he had saved. The boy who had just saved him. I thought you couldn't use telepathy. Liam shook his head slowly. I cannot hear it, I cannot speak it. But I never tried to push. He looked down at Norman's unconscious form. No one ever taught me how. The battle ended shortly after, with Norman defeated and his shields down. His fleet surrendered. Lily's soldiers found James and Liam still standing over the unconscious commander. The victory celebration lasted for days, but James spent most of it in quiet corners, watching from a distance. Lily found him on the observation deck, staring out at the same nebula they had watched together before. You are thinking about leaving, she said. James nodded. I should get back to Earth eventually. I have loose ends, a life to figure out. Lily was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Liam would be devastated. I know. And I. She stopped, started again. I would miss your presence as well. More than I should perhaps admit. James turned to look at her. She was beautiful in the starlight, her silver hair glowing softly, her violet eyes deep and luminous. "I could stay," he said carefully, "if there was a reason to." "Then let me offer something." She stepped closer. "Stay with us. Be Liam's teacher, his guide, help him become the leader I know he can be." "I have one condition," he said. "I need to go back to Earth sometimes, not often. But sometimes there's someone I need to visit." Understanding softened her features. "Your daughter," Brina, James said. "I need to tell her what happened. I need her to know that I'm okay, that I found something worth living for." Again, Lily reached out and took his hand. Her fingers were warm against his, her touch gentle. "Then we will visit her together," she said. "You, me, and Liam as a family." James felt tears prick at his eyes. He did not fight them. The observation deck was quiet when Liam found them later, hand in hand watching the stars. He stopped in the doorway, his golden eyes widening as he took in the scene. Then he smiled, a huge smile that lit up his entire face, and he ran forward to throw his arms around both of them. They stayed like that for a long time. Three people from different worlds bound together by something stronger than blood or telepathy or any language ever invented. Family, James thought. This is what family feels like. The stars stretched out before them, infinite and full of possibility, and for the first time in 4 years, James was not afraid of the future. He was looking forward to it. And that was the end of today's story. If you listened to all the way through, let me know what you thought in the comments. Your feedback means a lot. Don't forget to like, subscribe for more stories like this, and check out the next video on your screen. Big hug and see you next time.